We applied the time horizon principle to ourselves. So we decided that when we reach out to these customers, what is a time horizon in which you are looking to make them a customer? Because if you are looking to convert every conversation that you have with a prospect into a customer, you are going to be aggressively selling. You're going to be desperate for closing a sale. And that's bad for business. Nobody likes someone who is selling. And when you are actively trying to sell, I think your incentives are also not aligned. You don't have the best interest of the other person. If I have to sell something to you today, I would have that at the back of my mind every time, right? And I'm not going to be fully thinking about, I'm not going to be thinking about what is best for you. I'm going to thinking about how I can close a sale. So we decided that we are going to extend that horizon, because if we get a good customer, we want that customer to stay with us for the remaining parts of our lifetime. We are talking about 30, 40 years. We need to substantially invest in building this sales pipeline. And I think we came across this book called Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. It talks about building a predictable sales engine. It talks in the context of SaaS products, but it is very much applicable to any business, not just SaaS products. So we have been fascinated by this idea of building a predictable revenue channel, because that's the only way that the company can continuously grow. Growth is not a one-time event. So we have been trying to build that. We have been investing in that. We have been focused on building an outbound sales team. That's an initiative that we have been running for the last 3 years. We have made substantial progress now. Think about the people who invest in stock market and others, right? So when you go to an advisor to invest, he would ask you, what is your time horizon? And accordingly, he picks funds, right? Yeah. So if you have a 3-year timeline, then he would say, okay, you can go for maybe like not so aggressive, but probably something at the mid-level. If you are having a 5-year timeline, then you can be aggressive. If you are having a very small, a short-term timeline, less than 3 years, then he would say, then go invest in fixed-term solutions. In life, things go wrong. So no matter how good Focaloid is, there are going to be projects where something may turn out to be bad. It's possible that maybe an engineer quits. Maybe an engineer falls sick. Maybe our timelines don't work. Maybe there are more bugs than there should have been. These are unavoidable. Those are the realities of life. But when such a situation happens, how do you handle that situation? If that relationship is strong, you can overcome that. But if that relationship is weak, you tend to separate at that point. After we met them a couple of times post-COVID, the kind of opportunities that opened up would not have opened up if I had not met them. And I haven't done anything differently. It's the same team that is working, but the only thing that has changed that I can attribute to this is that we met them in person. So that seems to build some kind of trust. Secondly, I have an instance of a prospect with whom I've been speaking for about 6 months. We've had very good conversations, but opportunities are always further and further away. I informed him I'm in a city, so can we meet? And I was surprised when I walked into that meeting to see that he had his CTO, he had his head of engineering, he had like a whole bunch of people sitting in a conference room. And I walk in and they present a project and they discuss about a project. And I'm like, I had no clue you guys had a project. When I spoke to you a month back, you didn't give me a hint about this. You were just saying there is nothing in the pipeline. But the moment I turned up in person, they were willing to discuss that. So that turning up in person, I think, is extremely important.
Hi, today I'll be conversing with Venkat Ramakrishnan, who is founder of Focaloid. Focaloid is a B2B service provider. Venkat Ramakrishnan is Indian Institute of Management Ahmedabad's alumni. He is founder of Focaloid, which is a B2B service providing company. In today's conversation, we will be discussing about Venkat's initial ventures and how he ended up in B2B servicing, and also a lot about sales, management, and crucial business decisions. I'm Saravana Bhava. I'm co-founder of TechIS Coding Bootcamp. If you are interested in learning web development, data science, and ChatGPT courses, I will leave a link in the description. Please explore it. If you find this video useful, like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Hi, Venkat. Yeah.
Good morning, Saravana. Good morning.
Morning. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
My pleasure to be here.
Yes. Yes, Venkat. I would love to talk about Focaloid and other stuff like about the business, whatever you have done. But before that, I want to know about your childhood. Like, how was your childhood? Because I ask this question to all the founders or business leaders because I want to know how their childhood played a crucial role or made them take the decision to become a business leader.
Okay. Uh, I would say that I've had a quite a nice childhood. I mean, no complaints. Quite a few remarkable moments that I can recollect. Uh, I grew up to parents who were working in banks, so which meant that they had frequent transfers. So my brother, for example, has studied in I think 7, 8 schools because they had frequent transfers. So when it came to me, my parents decided that they did not want me switching schools that frequently. So uh, they had taken some decisions to shift. I think once we went to this place called Thrissur, that's my native town. So I was in a school and I had been there from 5th to 12th, right? So all my 7 years I've studied in the same school, and my mother had chosen that school quite well because that was one school that focused a lot on spoken English. Uh,
Which school?
this was called Harisri Vidyanidhi School. This is in Thrissur. And I think, and it was started by a remarkable woman called Nalini Chandran. She was an army widow. She started the school on by herself, and I think I'm sure she would have faced a lot of resistance, but she overcame all that, many hurdles that would have come in her way, uh, even in terms of raising finances. So that was a remarkable school to study in, and that was a school that I don't think I really appreciated what that school gave to me when I was in school, but probably when I went to college and later on in life, I think that's when I realized the benefits that I've derived from that school. I think the ability to communicate very clearly in English, the fact that you had a lot of books, a very good library where you could go read books.
Can you tell me any instance where you realized, oh, what if I was not in the school? I wouldn't have done this in my university. Is there any instance or any incidents?
I would say that in general, I've been a late bloomer in everything, right? So I think this realization came to me probably when I was studying in college. When I'm doing my BTech, I studied in Government Engineering College, Thrissur. And so in school, I was quite unremarkable. Like I was not participating in events or I don't think I've done anything stand out in school apart from study and make friends. But I think when I went to college, I sort of had this. I took on this initiative to I think do a lot of things. We even had started a group discussion club because a lot of us were keen on getting into the IIMs or writing CAT. Then I think there were quite a few initiatives that I was part of in college, and I think the courage to do all that came from the fact that I could communicate very well, and that in essence is something that came because I studied in that school.
Oh, so when you were in school, you didn't know that because everyone around you communicated well. So you thought that's common. And when you went to university,
Absolutely, and I think the command over the language. I think whether we like it or not, English by default is the language that runs the world, right? If you have to work, if you have to run a corporation, or you have to be doing well in a job nowadays, you need to know English. That's the business language. So the command over the language came primarily because of I think the principles that the school was based on. So in the school, they wanted everybody to speak in English. Spoken English was something that they put a lot of stress on. They had invested in teachers who had similar interest. So English was not just a subject that was taught; English was practiced.
yes,
So I think in school you probably don't appreciate that. You look at it as punishment,
yes,
but later on in life you realize that that probably helped me. That
yes,
has helped me become who I am. It also helped me realize how privileged I am as well, because I can, and I think this realization came, for example, after my engineering, I joined Bosch, and there one of my closest friend was a person called Vadivel. He was from Tamil Nadu. After getting to know Vadivel, I sort of realized that this is a guy who is far more intelligent than me. Uh, Works extremely hard. He's very dedicated to stuff. He's very persistent. But he's someone who started learning in an English medium school, I think in his 10th or 11th, if I'm not mistaken. So, right. So, somebody who has, and he was someone who was putting in a lot of effort to pick up English, and he spoke English really well. So, it is remarkable that the amount of progress that he made, considering he has shifted to English medium only from 10th or 11th. So, when you look at someone like that, and that's when you realize that, oh wow, I've been really privileged to have this experience from probably 5th, which has definitely given me a leg up. So on all other counts, this is someone who would do far better than me in anything. I'm probably at the same level as him, only because of the fact that I probably have a decent command over the language, right? And even there were other students so mine was a government college, so which means that you have people from all strata of the economy, and that was a good experience as well. So you have people who are there simply on a scholarship. I mean, this is a college which charges you 6,000 rupees per year, right? Which is not a huge amount, even 10 years back. But there are people who could not afford to pay that, and it was good to be with such people, in the sense that it exposes you to the fact that there are people from different strata of economy. You do not tend to judge people based on how they look or what they wear or where they come from. You start simply respecting people based on merit, because you go in and you realize that despite all the things that you come with, you simply are not able to compete with them, or you still have to struggle to compete with them. So that makes you realize that these are gifted people, but it is just that their circumstances were probably not as fortunate as yours was. So that gives you I think a perspective on life, and those are times when I look back and realize that this schooling that I've got is a real gift. If not for that, I probably would not have reached where I am today.
Interesting. So that leads me to another question. So with your story with Vadivel and yourself, is that the reason why there are a lot of Indian tech or Indian people or Indian people who work in corporate become the leaders of big tech like Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, where there are other amount of Asian communities in US. They are still working hard. They are extremely talented. Maybe they could be from China, Japan, Vietnam, or even Philippines. But is that the barrier why Indian corporate leaders succeed?
I do not think this essentially has to come from a command over the language. I think to be a successful leader, you need to gain the respect of your peers, the respect of your teammates, the respect of your customers. And I think one part of what builds this respect is how much you understand and relate to people, how you are able to mingle with them. And I think there probably Indians definitely have an advantage, because India is not a homogeneous country, right? If you look at our country, Kerala is very different from Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is different from Karnataka. Karnataka is different from Andhra. For somebody looking from outside, they think that India is one country, but India is not one country. So when you work at even a workplace in, let's say, Bangalore, you have people from all of these states. You have people from Delhi, you have people from Chandigarh, Pune. So to somebody from outside, it looks like, oh, there must be a lot of things that are common amongst, I mean, like their culture must be the same. They should have had they might celebrate the same festivals, but the reality is that we don't. We celebrate different festivals. There are certain things that are common to us as India, which are pan-India. But there are other things that are unique to each of these places. So I believe that probably this gives us an inherent advantage of being able to mingle with people outside. So for us, when you step outside and maybe you're in Europe or you're in US and you mingle with a different culture, it's just a culture that is little further away. But I think you're already used to mingling with people who are from a slightly different culture. And I think that is probably where maybe Indian leaders have had an advantage of being able to take everybody along together, build respect. And I think fundamentally, there is also a business acumen and technology acumen that has probably helped, because all of the leaders that we name in this list are probably tech leaders, right? You look at your Satya Nadella, or you look at Sundar Pichai, or Adobe's CEO. You're all looking at tech leaders. So I think, and fundamentally, the fact that our education stressed a lot on mathematics and those things gave you an inherent leg up, and I think that's where China is also doing well. Couple that with the fact that you have these different cultures, and I think the fact that English became quite prominent here, I think helped all of us. So you also knew how to get along people. You have your own language, but you also speak English, which is the language that probably makes the world run. So I believe that could be one of the reasons, but I still feel it is really wrong to generalize and say that this is probably a reason why all Indian business leaders can succeed or should succeed, because this is still a small minority, right? And we are probably looking at a handful of companies where this is happening, whereas ignoring the fact that there are millions of companies that are run by people of other nationalities which are doing well. So this is cherry picking samples that suit your narrative, if I were to look at it that way. So while we cannot generalize, I believe these are things that probably set them up for success.
Okay, interesting. So with that, I want to go to the next step of your life. You are from IIM, right?
I am from IIM
Ahmedabad. But you did B.Tech in your as undergraduate. As an undergraduate, you did B.Tech.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've done a B.Tech in Electronics and Communication. This is from Government Engineering College, Thrissur.
Okay. My question is, people who want to enter the technical field, like start their career in engineering, why do they shift to management? They drop. I have a lot of friends who are passionate engineers. They show that they are very passionate about engineering. They join the tech, but within a couple of months after they graduate, or if couple of months in work industry, they switch to management. Like they want to do MBA, they want to do business. They gain business experience or knowledge, so they choose IIM or any other B schools. Why did you choose to become a business student, management student, from being a tech student here?
I think in our country probably it is. So let's take one step back. Today, what engineering is doing was probably in our parents' generation, when they were probably studying, maybe a BCom or a BSc was equivalent of that, right? So this was just a method to. So everybody's trying to succeed in life, and you're looking at what can help me get there, right? And in maybe like in my parents' generation, probably a BCom or a BSc helped them stand out from most other people, because most of them were just probably a 12th pass. I think it was not a 12th, it was called a PUC then. So probably most people were a 10th pass or a 10th fail or a PUC. So then probably doing a BCom or a BSc helped you really stand out. So then BSc was the gold standard. Engineering was probably a rarity because there were very few engineering colleges around. Then come to our generation, when I think engineering became a business, when people started realizing that parents by general want their students to do well. Every parent wants that. They want their kids to do better than how they have done, and they want their kids to get better infrastructure and experiences than what they had been through. So I think every parent in India generally wants their kids to be well educated, give them the maximum exposure and best things that can have. And I think the whole engineering industry sort of capitalized on that. So they realized that starting engineering colleges was a good business. So then a lot of engineering colleges mushroomed, and there was a phase when that was probably the hottest thing to do, start an engineering college. Cut to today, there are a lot of engineering colleges that have seats that are like vacant. People are not taking it up, and they're trying to see what else they can do. So I think engineering just became a method by which you could stand out. It was just an external validation. It's like on your CV, you want something that says you're good, right? So those validations come from maybe certifications, from, you're always looking for third party verified things, right? So why do you have a lot of certificates that say you were first in some competition or you participated in some competition? Because that's all external validation that you're getting. So I can always come and tell you that, hey, I'm a good guy, hire me. But then you are going to ask me, okay, how do I know you're actually good? How do I verify that? So then you're looking for some third party to tell you that, hey, this guy is good. So that's where these certifications come in. So in my opinion, engineering is just one such certification. And most people are taking up engineering simply because of the fact that that certification had a lot of validity in that world where you could get a job. So it was ultimately a choice between, where do I have a higher probability of success? If I do a BCom, what are the options in front of me? If I do a BTech, what are the options in front of me? And I think most people just took the route of BTech because the whole software industry was booming. You knew firsthand or you knew secondhand about someone who did very well with Infosys, who did very well with Wipro, who went on-site, who became a software engineer, who migrated to the US. And that was a really good story to sell. So people wanted that. They want their kids to have that. And I think that's why the whole engineering thing happened. So now you have a ton of engineers. Now, how do you stand out among those engineers? So the next best thing is to say that, okay, I will go to the US, I'll probably do an MS or I'll do an MTech at an IIT or probably an MBA. And I think that's how the MBA craze also came in, because MBA was the thing to do. Now, if you look at it, there is a reflection of that. The number of IIMs have increased. The number of B schools have increased. If you look at the number of EPGP programs that have come out, that have increased. And if you currently look at it, the number of certification programs, which are not a degree or a diploma, but even short-term management courses have increased, because people are constantly looking for, one, there is also an inherent value add that they get. So I'm not discounting that. I'm not making a claim that this education does not add any value to you. No, it definitely adds value. But why do you go through that whole process? Because at the end of it, you have this certification or validation that you're able to use that to get a leg up over somebody who does not have that. And I think that's what people are aspiring for. So when I went into engineering as well, probably, and I love engineering, by the way, and I believe that I'm fundamentally a good engineer. By fundamental engineer, I mean that I'm not good at software writing or software coding, but I believe that I have that knack of, or I like understanding how things work. I like how mechanical things work. I constantly look at YouTube channels. So I probably tinker around with things at home. Like maybe something breaks, or to repair that, I try to make an attempt. So that's where I believe that I'm a good engineer. Right, but that does not mean that I can write code or I can do a lot of what is currently termed engineering. So I think for me as well, this was a way of going, like, how can I do better? Like, if I just finish with a BTech degree, where do I get? And if I want to get somewhere else, what is the next logical step to do that? And I think a second degree or a post-graduation is definitely one way to get there. Then you start looking at, okay, what are the options, which is practical, where can you actually get, where do you get the most bang for the buck, and then you try and do that.
Mm-hmm. So that's how you went to IIM.
I believe that's how I went to IIM, and I think there was definitely an interest in management to look at different things, because we had this event called Quintessence that we organized at college. That is something that I really liked. So I sort of realized that I do like doing these sort of things, not just sitting and writing code. And then I think that sort of became a goal. But I can clearly tell you that I did not go into IIM knowing what IIM gives me. Right? I did not, because when at IIM, I saw a lot of people who had that clarity of thought. They clearly knew why they had come into IIMA, because they were very clear that, look, I want to get into finance. I want to become an investment banker, and this is my way to get there. Or I want to get into consulting. My current profile does not let me go there, so I have to go there. I think I went in pretty much having no clue. So for me, getting to IIM was the goal. Okay, getting out of IIM, I've never thought about what I would do after IIM. So to me, I think that probably was the reason I wanted to get there, because I knew that getting there would help me become better. And then once I reached there, then I started exploring what it gives, what you can learn. You learn from your peers a lot, and that was experience for me.
Okay. So with that, I'll ask another question. So, are engineers good at cracking down things? For example, cracking an examination or cracking a way to crack a GRE exam or MBA exam, CAT examination? Are they good at cracking examination?
Again, I'm trying to question, why do we restrict or generalize this to being an engineer's trait? There are chartered accountants who are cracking exams, right? There are people who get into UPSC who are cracking exams. There are people who crack banking exams. All of them are aptitude tests of some kind, or you do your, GRE, GMAT definitely are technical, but maybe your GMAT. It is just that engineering has become more in number and more of a guaranteed way to success, that you are having a larger number of people gravitating to engineers, and not just a larger number of people gravitating. I think the average smart guy gets to choose that. So you have most of your smart guys doing engineering. Then when you look at your results, you will say that, hey, a large number of engineers are coming into it, but that's not causality. It's not that engineers are good at doing this. It is just that the smart guys, when they were probably in your 12th, you looked at engineering as the most assured way to success. So you took up engineering. Had he taken commerce, he would still have been a smart guy. He may have taken a CA and he might still crack the CAT. But your average smart guy is taking engineering because engineering has a higher probability of I think, a job success. Most people are looking for a job at the end of their degree, right? So engineering had a higher probability of giving a job.
So today you are a business leader, you run your own business. That to do this, the confidence or the exposure, did IIM gave you that?
Absolutely. I think, so like I said, to me, getting to IIM was the goal. I did not know what happens after IIM. And that probably was a function of, I think, your peer group as well. Because when you study in an elite school from where an elite college, let's say an IIT or an NIT, where you probably have a large number of people going into these, and you have a lot of alumni who have gone there, you probably know what they are doing and all of that. In Government Engineering College, Thrissur, we probably had a handful of people to talk to about this, right? So in my batch, probably 4 people, I think, went to IIMs. So 2 of us went to IIMA, 1 person went to IIM Bangalore, somebody else went to IIM, I think, Indore. So I believe that's about the number. In my senior batch, probably very little. And I think in my batch, probably this number 4 was quite high. And this is of a batch of 400. So you don't have a lot of peers to talk to know what actually helps you get there, right? So to me, I wasn't even sure whether I'm qualified to get into an IIM. So you go in with that self-doubt, thinking, do I actually belong here? Okay, that's the perspective which I've gone to IIM. I'm not sure that I actually belong there. But I think as your curriculum progress, you see that you're doing well. You see that you're doing reasonably well compared to your peers. You see that your peers respect you as well. And I think that gives you a lot of validation. That is quite important. That's when you get that self-confidence. And that was something that I gained out of IIM. And I think at the end of IIM, I had this confidence that I don't have to worry about a job anymore. If I go out to the market, I will surely get a job. I'm not talking about the scale of the job, whether it is going to be the most financially lucrative job. I don't know. But I don't have to be worried about getting a job. I did not have this confidence probably after my BTech. Right? Because I think right after BTech, I graduated when we had the 2008 crisis. I graduated in 2008. So I had seen a lot of my friends whose job offers were rescinded or probably delayed, and there was this huge uncertainty around what is going to happen. So having been through that, I think there was this inherent fear that job is something that you hold on to. And if you look at your previous generation, your mom, dad, everybody, they have been at the same job for 30 years. So a job is not something that you let go. And it's a function of the economy that they were in. There wasn't enough prosperity, there weren't enough companies starting up or new opportunities starting up. So you don't let go of something that you have. And as a result, I think those values get imbibed into you as well. So their fears transfer to you as well, because they have grown up in that. You don't realize that you are having that fear. But I think nowadays, if you look at it, people are not holding on to a job so much, right? People are happy to just quit a job without getting a new job. They're going to say that I'm taking a break because there are enough opportunities around. And there is a confidence in this generation, because I think their parents are probably, they have seen a lot more prosperity in the country. But I did not have that confidence when I went into IIM that I can get a job for sure. But after IIM, I think I had that confidence and self-belief that job is the last thing I need to worry about. So that gave me the confidence to actually start up. So I was thinking this is probably the best time to start up, because I have an education loan to worry about, but I don't have other liabilities. Thankfully, I did not come from a very poor household. So we were from a middle class household, but still my parents were able to manage themselves. So I didn't have the pressure of having to contribute to the family immediately. There wasn't any financial burden at home. So I think these were all factors that helped me take a decision that I can go out and try something. If it doesn't work out, I still have the backup of a job, because I've come out of probably the best B school in the country, and somebody or the other is definitely going to be happy to have me with the experience of being a failed entrepreneur, if that's it. So IIMA definitely played a part in helping me get there. And more than that, I think we also had a professor called Sunil Handa. He used to take this course called LEM, which is Lessons in Entrepreneurship. He is someone who actually motivated me a lot to take up entrepreneurship. So he's someone who gives you that push to actually go out and take it, because you will have these questions, you will have these self-doubts. So you will not go out and do something. You're always like, before you jump into taking action, you have these doubts, because of which you are holding yourself back, right? He's one person who gave us that final push. He karo. And his course, to actually go out and start something. Yeah. So his idea is, don't take up a job. You have to start something. And I think even my dad to some extent has I think inculcated that vision in me, where he always used to say that you have to be a job creator, not a job seeker. And I think so this all sort of like, it's like a cooking pan where all of these things start coming together, and at the right time you get the right push, and all of this I think gave me the confidence to start up. And I think that's how I decided to skip placements and say that let's try and run Focaloid.
Oh, so the first thing you started was Focaloid?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So after graduating from IIM.
I think this actually happened before graduating. So the Focaloid was born during our internship break. So at the end of 1 year, you have an internship. So I was interning with Microsoft in Mumbai. So a couple of months prior to that is when we started having these discussions with my co-founders. So Anish is someone I met at my workplace at Bosch, and Preshob was his engineering batchmate. So we started talking about doing something, and Preshob was working in Infosys, and there he had seen a large number of hobby photographers come up, because engineers, they go to the US, they probably go on site, they have some money, and I think you're looking for the next tech gadget that you can buy, right? And at that time, the DSLR camera was becoming very popular among hobby photographers. So we saw that a lot of people had good cameras, they were capturing brilliant images, but there wasn't much that happened beyond that. So then our idea was to create a platform for them where they could post their images, make it a social media, where they can learn from others, they can follow other photographers. So that was the original idea for Focaloid. So that is something that we conceptualized. That's why the name is Focaloid. Yes. So that was something that we conceptualized in somewhere around 2012. And if I remember right, we went live with the website on August 19, 2012. So yeah. same month, I think a couple of days earlier than this. So that's when we went live with the first version of Focaloid. And then subsequently, once I got back from my internship, so during that I was interning, Prashobh was working with Infosys, Anish was at his job. Anish was the first person to quit. So in our life, always Anish has been the risk taker. So he's someone who has always shown the way. And I think he was the first person to quit. There's a backstory to that. I'll come to that later. So we came back, and then we were working in parallel. Second year is a little light in IIMA. So you get to pick courses. So if you are choosing courses that are relatively light, then you can manage. But fortunately or unfortunately for me, I had signed up to be a PlaceCom member, right? Which means you are responsible for getting placement to your whole batch and to your junior batch for the summer placements. And this is a group of 20 people, like about 5% of the batch, right? So I had signed up for that, which meant that you cannot really relax. You have a lot of work apart from actual studies. In retrospect, all that experience, I think, came back even when we were building Focaloid, because we were actually doing sales without realizing we were doing sales. But coming back to how we started, so we came back, and then there was this program called iAccelerator. So IIM had a center for incubation called CIIE. They used to have this accelerator program called iAccelerator. It was a 3-month program where you go in, they help you with a lot of expertise. They bring experts to talk to, they bring VCs. So you get to refine your product, build your product. And at the end, there is a demo day where you can pitch your product. And if you're lucky, you can get funded as well. So we applied for that program. We got into that. Anish quit his job. Prashobh also quit his job. All of us were in Ahmedabad. So all 3 of us were in IIM. They were in a dorm, and we were participating in this program. And I was juggling between studies and this. I wasn't bold enough to drop out. So I knew that I had to complete the degree. So I was juggling between that. And then we got through that program, and we went through a lot of iterations during that. And at the end of the program, we had a product that we were reasonably happy with. Then we started going out to market.
To the VCs and iAccelerator?
No, not for funding. I think, we did try funding through demo day and all of that. And we were in talks with, there were a couple of individuals who were interested. So we were in talks with them. And in parallel, you can't just sit idle, right? So you also want to get new customers. And I think our product had also, we had iterated the product a lot by then. So we came to the realization that if it is purely going to be a B2C enterprise where you've seen the success of something like a Facebook or a Twitter, and you say that you build it, you give everything for free, you build a community, and in the end revenue comes. During our talks with VCs and other things, we realized that Facebook is an outlier. Not a lot of companies reach where Facebook has reached, right? So if you're going to follow the Facebook method, you better do something completely special. And we realized that we probably weren't there yet. So we were then looking at, okay, how do we get the product from A to B? How do we improve it and gradually build this? So along the way, we started making it a marketplace for photographers. Where you can come hire a professional photographer. We started building a product that caters to the wedding photographers. Because here, typically in India, you have a wedding, a ton of pictures are clicked. The wedding album probably comes 6 or 8 months later. So when we spoke to photographers, some of the good ones, we realized that this was a pain point for their customers. This was something the wedding couple or their parents were not happy about. They spent money on photography, but they have to wait about 6 months to a year to get an album. So we started building a product to really solve that, where a photographer has probably 2,000 images after a wedding. He plugs it. There is automatically miniature versions created of that. A website is created where the parents or the couple can go select photos. It syncs back to his desktop. It creates a copy of those images, and then he can edit on that. So this was something that was quite a novelty. I mean, it's not a big tech product of sort, but it was solving a challenge. That was something photographers liked. So we started with all of this, and we started going out to photographers, actually meeting real life professional photographers and see whether they can be onboarded to the platform. And that's when we came across certain hurdles. We realized that there were fundamental flaws in our assumption. Like one very pertinent question that a lot of photographers asked us was not about the product, not about the pricing. It was about your product requires internet. Who is going to pay for internet? And we had not even thought about that. I mean, you don't expect that as a question. Yeah, because for us, we were sitting in IIMA campus. IIMA campus had your leased lines and very stable internet, or even back home, I have always had internet connection, right? So you don't think that somebody is going to put this as a blocker for a product. You assume that internet was there, but when you went out, you realize that core assumption is wrong. This was in 2012, 2013 probably, 2013 March. Then the second realization was that our idea of photographers was someone who was well-to-do. Because a photographer is you associate that job with the glamour. Right? And the kind of photographers we had spoken to during the product development were also photographers who were very successful. But as we went into the market, we realized that this is an industry that is like sports, that is like cinema, where the top 1% take away 90% of the revenue. Right? The remaining 99% are battling for that remaining 10% or 15% of opportunity that is out there. So which means that these guys are immensely rich, they are well to do, but the others are literally at poverty line. Yeah. So many of the photographers, when we go to their home, if they have a camera, that's a prized possession. So they don't have anything else apart from that. They sometimes don't even have a laptop or a PC. They work with a studio to get that done. So they probably sometimes take this camera on rent. So this was quite surprising to us. I mean, looking back, we should have realized all this earlier on, but we didn't. So we built the product, and when we went to market, we realized that this is the reality. Our product does not fit here. And the most important realization struck that photographers don't have money. So if your customer does not have money, how are you hoping to make money off him? That we realized was the wrong premise. So then we decided to wind up that version of Focaloid. So we went back to the investors that we were talking to, and we said, there are change in plans. So I know we were talking, but we are not going to take that money. Thankfully, we did not raise money, because had we raised money, we might have been forced to pursue this for a longer time without having conviction in it. The fact that we did not raise money turned out to be a boon for us.
Yes, because in a couple of years, Instagram was there. Yeah,
that is, I don't think we even foresaw that Instagram would be there, because we didn't even see the level to which mobile photography would become so prominent. The fact that everybody would have a smartphone. At that time, none of us had a smartphone. iPhone was there, but none of us owned one, because iPhone was like a very premium product. You don't see that. If you see somebody having an iPhone, you would probably want to just go look at it, right? So then we decided to wind up this version of Focaloid, and by the time that happened, we have run out of money. So any saving that we had from our jobs was out, and I think I was getting a stipend from IIMA. So IIMA had this Mavericks program where the alumni of IIMA who had gone on to found companies, they said, we want to encourage entrepreneurship. So if somebody is skipping placement, I would give you a stipend so that you can pay your loans. Yeah. So the alumni was doing this. So my fellowship was sponsored by Rajesh Nair. He's the founder of Indigene. So I'm grateful to him for having provided that of this company called Indigene.
Indigene. Oh, it's in Bangalore.
It is. They started off in Bangalore, but they're headquartered in New Jersey now. It is quite a large company. It's more than $1 billion worth right now. In fact, both the founders were from IIMA, Rajesh and Manish. So this stipend was what we were using to run the company. So we had hired a designer from my engineering college, and I had hired another software developer, another engineer, a fresh graduate from NIT Calicut, and we had to pay salaries. So we were using my stipend to pay these salaries. But we realized that this can't go on for too long. Right. So then we decided that we made a mistake of going after B2C. So we said, let's not go after B2C. We will look at B2B. And then we started ideating around B2B. We three sit in a room and we think about ideas. All the ideas that comes to our mind were B2C because that's all that we have been exposed to. We did not have a ton of experience in corporate life. All of us started right after college or with very little years of work experience, right? So we decided that why don't we then pivot to services, and why don't we then constantly look for ideas. I think once we start working for larger companies, for enterprises, we might stumble upon some B2B problem that might be worth solving. So that was the idea with which we moved to services, and we grudgingly moved to it. It was not like, oh wow, let's do services and we jumped into it. We had this notion that product was like the gold standard and services was probably not there.
Okay, you said you hired designer and developer, right? So what were they designing and what are they developing? What were they developing?
I think when we built the first product of Focaloid, which was the web-based application, design was a key thing for us. So me and my co-founder Anish, both of us have a sense of design. Well, we are not designers ourselves. I think we appreciate good design. So that was something we wanted to be a part of any product that we built.
The platform, the photographer.
The web platform, yes.
But you scraped it, stopped it.
We stopped it.
So you still paying this designer and
Absolutely, yes. He was probably the so Hemant, he's currently with ClearTax. He's working in ClearTax. He was someone who he also did engineering. He was in fact my junior at college. He was from electronics and communication. I don't think he was ever meant to be an engineer, but he just landed up in engineering probably because of the whole societal push. But he was one of the best designers that I've come across till now. Extremely creative, extremely talented. And in our office in Kochi, we still have a painting or an art that has been done by him. When you look at it, I still marvel at, oh wow, how did this guy do this? Because it's like that. So we couldn't let go of somebody like that. And even when we started services, this was going to be a key offering for us. The fact that we can design, we are not just a bunch of engineers sitting together and coding, that we actually design a product. That was a key offering for us. And when we went out to the services market, all we have to show as a track record is our website, what we built. And people liked that primarily because of the fact that it had good design. So it was a thought through product. So design had to be part of what we sell.
Oh, so you had this platform, but you didn't made it live, or you didn't.
It was live. It had photographers. It had photographers contributing a lot. There were people posting pictures on a daily basis. But we sort of decided to wind it up.
Okay.
But we still have it live to show to someone. Yes.
So you showed it to your clients.
That's the only thing that we have to show. I mean, when somebody asks you, okay, you are telling me you can build a product, show me what you have done. This is the only thing that we have done.
So who are these clients and where are they from?
I think our the first customer that we got was through a referral. Somebody knew someone who, like Anish knew someone who was running a company and they were looking for Sencha developers. Sencha was a cross-platform mobile technology that came up then. So they wanted something to be built in that. And Sencha was new, so nobody knew Sencha. So it was not like a Java developer or a Python developer where there is already a market or a pool of talent available. There was nobody available in Sencha. So when we put our hands up and said, we'll do it, the guy is like, okay, no problem. Because he anyway doesn't have anybody else to do it. Then we picked it up. I think Delbin, our engineer, picked it up. Prashop was also working on it. And we did a reasonably good job and completed that. That was our first project.
It's a mobile application.
It was a crude mobile application, if I could put it that way. And I think our second reference came from a friend, a company that was also at iAccelerator. They were also bootstrapping themselves through services. So they had a customer, or they came across a customer who was looking for mobile app development, and they did not want to take up that project, so they passed it on to us. And fortunately for us, that turned out to be a very long lasting relationship with them. So these were two ladies based in San Francisco, Indians, but they were based in San Francisco Bay Area. And they wanted to build an app for, I think, for counselor management. So in US, counseling is quite important, right? After high school, not psychologists. So after high school, you go to a counselor to figure out, okay, which colleges do I apply to? How do I get there? How do I create my recommendation letter or my intro letter and all of that? So they were building a platform for that, and we supported them through that entire journey, starting from design to development, deployment. And I think our core value proposition is we have made a ton of mistakes, so we'll tell you what they are so that you don't make them. That was our promise to them.
First
Yes.
version of Focaloid. Yeah.
Right. So that was the pitch with which we went in. And I think they were also happy working with us because unlike a traditional firm where you probably like hire engineers, here were 3 founders who were working with you. And I think that was a value add which you can't price today. Like they're not paying money for it, but that's a value add. That was a differentiator for us.
So
They're also trying to build something, start something. So that turned out to be our next client, and that went on. Then we had somebody else. I mean, like this, you start reaching out, and when you are, and this is literally like any other problem that you have to solve. Like if you have to survive, you have to get a new project. So when survival becomes a question, I think something just comes out of you. Your survival instincts kick in. You start reaching out to people. And something that I realized is people are willing to help. People are wanting to help. So when you reach out to your batchmates, when you reach out to someone, you have a lot of inhibition in reaching out because you are like, how do I tell him that I failed? How do I tell him that I have not done anything successful? So you feel ashamed. You feel, I think there is a lot of inhibition in reaching out and opening up to people. But what we realized is when we open up and we reach out to people, they're more than happy to help because people are genuinely interested in seeing others succeed. If I can help someone successful, the joy that I get out of it is not quantifiable. That is not something that money can buy. And everybody looks for that. You may not know this. I mean, you may not think, like this is not intuitive. You don't look at someone and say he's going to be happy when I succeed. So if I ask him for help, he's going to go out of his way to help me. That's not the normal thinking, right? You always think what is in it for him. There has to be something in it for him to help you. Yeah. But the thing is when you go out and ask for help, people are very happy to go out and help you. So that's something that we realized. So when you reach out and say that, hey, I started Focaloid, but it didn't go anywhere. Now we have shifted to services. We are looking for projects. People actually try and do what they can to help you. They probably put you in touch with others, or if they know about someone who's doing a project, then they refer that to you. So that's how we built our initial customer base. And I think then we started, like we had 2 MBAs in this group, and these were people who theoretically were supposed to know how to run businesses. So I think we started racking our brains and trying to do different things that we had come across. So we knew about Google Ads. So then we started trying that. We ran Google Ad campaigns and we managed to get a few customers. This were again another entrepreneur.
So all this were in India?
This is all in India. Okay. So we are sitting out of Thrissur, not even in Kochi. So we are sitting out of my home in Thrissur. Probably there are 5 of us. And I think we also hired a couple of more fresh graduates from my college. And that's the group that is sitting there and going out looking for projects, delivering these small projects.
So they just simply reach out.
We simply reach out, and I think we started doing Google Ads as a campaign to look for people who are looking for projects. And I think something that helped us is I think we were genuine. So we were not trying to con people into giving us money. We were not worried about money. We were very sure of one thing, that we want to like I think in like while bringing up the middle class value that you have, right, that never take a loan unless you can repay, or if you take a loan, make sure that you go out of your way to repay. So those were things that we all of us shared as common values. So when we had a customer, I think we were more worried about delivering to the customer, because it was an obligation, it was our reputation at stake, than about him paying us initially. I think, and I think that helped us. That genuinity was something that even customers saw, and they were happy to talk to us. They were happy to see that, okay, these are guys who have well intention. And I think a couple of our, and if you look at our earliest customers, these are guys who have taken a complete bet on us as individuals, right? Because we are not a company, we don't have a track record, we haven't ever done services before, we don't have a large team, we don't have the infrastructure, yet they decided to go with us. And I think so they were our biggest backers, and we wanted to do justice to them, so we were genuinely interested in making sure we did a good job. We made a ton of mistakes, and I think our customers were supportive through that as well. So
when you say mistakes before servicing,
in services, even in services, so it's not magic, right? So I can't start a services company today and expect it to run smoothly. Then what is it that makes an Infosys or a ThoughtWorks special? Because they've refined their process over the years. And if I've never done services, how do I know how to run it well? So we do screw up things. Projects don't end on time. There are a ton of bugs. There are going to be delays. But I think if that trust equation is there, then people are willing to give you a little bit more of time to sort out all this. Like if that trust equation is very low, then the first screw up itself ends in separation. But if you trust the other person, then you're willing to give him a second chance to see, okay, I know this was supposed to be delivered on Monday, and can you do it by Friday? I'm willing to wait a little bit more. So I think for us that trust equation was there, probably because of which our customers supported as quite a lot. And I think and by default we are learners. So something that we inherently do is we make mistakes, but we learn from them and we constantly improve. That has been a factor of our business story all through. It's not that we come with all the acumen and we did everything right on day one, but every day of Focaloid has been an improvement over what we have done earlier.
My question is your projects. So are these like mobile application, web applications?
When we started, it was all mobile applications.
Okay. And these projects duration is very short, right?
Yes.
So, okay, we get a client, you finish in a couple of months maximum, you deliver the project, and what do you do next? You have to look for a client, or so how was the consistency in your business like?
I think this was the biggest problem that we ran into. I think you've nailed it. You take on a project, you finish it, and you have to have a good method to have another project lined up which starts at the same time. If that does not happen, your resources are sitting idle, right? And you have to continue paying salaries. Secondly, so this is the first level of the problem. There is a second level to the problem as well, that there are a lot of technologies running around. So one project may be running on, let's say, PHP, another project might be running on Python, third one on Java. So you have this resourcing mix as well coming in. If a project in PHP ends, the resources who become available are PHP resources. They can only take up a project in PHP next. So if even by chance you land a project, but if that requires a different technology, then you are still in a soup. So this was our biggest problem. One is finding projects from time to time and having a regular pipeline of projects and having projects that map this. And I think we struggled with it. And on top of it, you also have to keep growing your company. So you have to invest in more people, because services business is a linear growth. It's not a hockey stick. So it means, by linear, I mean that your revenue is directly proportional to your headcount.
Yes.
If I have 10 people, I have a cap on maximum revenue that I can realize. So I have to continuously invest in more people. And I also have to invest in new technologies, because when we started off, we probably were only doing mobile apps and some PHP related work, because that's what our original website was based on. But gradually we have to provide technologies that the market is demanding. So I cannot force a customer to take what I want. So when that happens, we have to continuously hire people. Then we realized that in order to run a services organization, you need to structure your organization. So which means you need quality analysts, you need people who do testing, you need project managers, you need a design team, you probably need business analysts and so on. So which means you have to constantly invest in growing this. And I think there came a point where we really struggled with it and we ran out of steam. So there was I remember this discussion that we had in our Kochi office where we drew this metrics of sort and we realized that this is literally impossible to manage. There is no way that I can guarantee projects on this basis. So then we decided to scale back. We said, we have taken on too much. So if you have to do a good job, let's cut down on the number of things that we do. So then we started saying no to certain technologies. We said that we are going to work with this limited set of technologies because at our scale, that's all that we can do. We cannot try to act like a big firm and try to take on too many things and then end up screwing that, because a customer who's lost is not just is not just one customer, because what I'm losing is potentially the lifetime value of that customer, the number of referrals or people that he would have brought in. His project would have grown over time. Secondly, I could have referred him to others to give testimonials. So there is a lot that I lose when I lose a customer. So I cannot lose a customer. That was a realization that we had. So then we better we set lower expectations and match them than try to set very high expectations and then unable to match. So we started saying no to technologies. We sort of tried to relook at how we were as an organization and try to differentiate that pitch a little. We realized that we were going wrong in a few things, I think. And this is a problem that any services company, you can close your eyes, pick any services company in this country or anywhere in the world, and they will have the same problem. Is that any project that you pick, if it's a fixed cost project, there is no guarantee that the 90% of the projects will not run on time, on schedule, on budget, etc. One of these metrics will go off. So which means that especially the larger the project, your ability to accurately estimate something is close to zero, right? This was something that we realized. So then we went back and we said that, okay, beyond a certain size, we are not going to give a fixed cost because that's where we are making mistakes. So we started identifying what's a sweet spot at which we can give a clear estimate. Because if a project is too large, then you are going to assume things and you will not delve into details. Your estimations can go wrong. So we started saying, hey, this is the sweet spot at which we can work. Anything bigger than this, we need to figure out a different method of working. It cannot work in the same manner. Then we started figuring out what that method is. We said that we would do a paid discovery. We would create a roadmap. We would break it down into smaller projects. We would not run it as one large project. Because then I was looking at it this way, that either I lose or the customer loses. It's never a win-win. If I am able to quote a significantly higher amount and the customer buys it, then I win. Even if my calculations go wrong, I still have large buffers which protect me. On the other hand, if the customer negotiates and I settle for a lower price, then I lose because my project is definitely going to overshoot my estimates and I don't get paid for it. So we realized this is not right. Somebody is losing out here. So let's try to make sure that we build that transparency, we build that trust and break it down into smaller modules. So we started changing our whole pitch, the way of working into that. And we focused on building that transparency. We started openly telling the customer that this is what can happen. I give you a budget. This is what can happen. Either I am losing or you are losing.
Let's presume that I am your customer. I have this project of an e-commerce. I ask you to do it. So what would be your pitch to me?
I think we first start off by looking at what is the volume of the project. Okay. If it is substantially large, then we explain to him why things go wrong. And this is not from a seller perspective. So I try to become an independent advisor and we openly tell him that this is not limited to Focaloid, that you can openly go work with someone else. That is okay. This is genuinely in your interest, because I don't want to take on a customer who feels that he is getting cheated. I want the customer to come in fully trusting us. If that trust is not there, then everything that I do, he's going to doubt. Right? So the whole purpose is to build that trust, and not just build it, you have to walk the talk as well. You have to really continuously focus on maintaining that trust, making sure that you're doing it for the customer. So our process is very simple. We do a discovery where we try to identify what exactly is there, because if it is a very large project, it is impossible for you to write a document and complete it. Then in that discovery, we try to identify phases that we can run. We break it down into smaller pieces, and we openly share everything that we have. That this is how we arrived at this cost. So our costing is not some magic pill that we keep inside. It is not a black box. So we accurately tell him, look, this is the number that we are asking from you, and this is how we have arrived at that number. These are the assumptions. He is free enough to go and talk to anybody about it. And if he has questions, we are happy to answer it. And I think that genuinely builds trust, because typically the approach has been that for a fixed cost project, people just throw a number and it's either take it or leave it. It's fixed cost. So why are you worrying about how the number is built? But we realized that that's not the way we work. The relationship with the customer tends to improve when you invest in building that trust. So we started doing that, and that started paving results. And then secondly, apart from projects, we started looking at how can we make it a sustainable thing, because a fundamental learning was that your business only grows if you're adding customers. If your project ends and you're starting a new project, you're actually replacing a customer. You're not adding a new customer, and your business is not growing. So then we started focusing on building these dedicated teams where we manage dedicated teams for our customers. And so we take care of all their engineering hassles. We ensure that productivity is there. We ensure their timelines are there. So if you look at companies that have a longer product map, delivery is not an end game or an event that happens finally, right? You are keeping on releasing a product. You are keeping on working on the product. And so we tell them that your team sits in our office. That's all. Nothing changes. And we try to do that in spirit, not just on paper.
So, who was your longest client in this method?
I think I've had a customer in Bombay who we started working with from 2015. If I remember right, it is 2015, so it's about 8 years. They are still with us and going strong. And it's not just one. In fact, we have 2 customers that we signed up in 2015 that are still with us. And throughout this period, and I think these are customers who have been with us for that long. But after we did all these changes, the kind of customers who came on board have been there since then. So while they've it's not been 8 years since that event, but probably the last 4 or 5 years, the customers that we have picked up in that time tend to stick with us for a longer period of time. Nowadays, we don't lose customers. So we pick a customer, they continue working with us.
How's the scalability of your business? Like how are you scaling? Like how are you finding clients abroad?
This was the next challenge, and I think this is something that I'm continuously working on. So our last 3 years, especially around COVID, is when we started going in this direction. We realized that we need to substantially invest in building this sales pipeline. And I think we came across this book called Predictable Revenue by Aaron Ross. It talks about building a predictable sales engine. It talks in the context of SaaS products, but it is very much applicable to any business, not just SaaS products. So we have been fascinated by this idea of building a predictable revenue channel, because that's the only way that the company can continuously grow. Growth is not a one-time event. So we have been trying to build that. We have been investing in that. We have been focused on building an outbound sales team. That's an initiative that we have been running for the last 3 years. We have made substantial progress now. I wouldn't say that all our sales problems are solved. It's a continuous journey, because you're also making mistakes, learning from it, and setting new things. But we have made substantial progress in building an outbound sales team where we continuously get new meetings, new customers from outside. We travel quite a lot in meeting these customers because we realize that building trust is the most important thing. And the easiest way to build trust is if you sit across one another and face to face have a coffee, lunch, and talk to each other. That is the simplest way to build trust. We travel quite a lot. So every month we travel, we meet people who our sales team have reached out to, and the important thing that we do is we have changed our horizons, right? This is typically, so to give you an analogy, I mean, think about the people who invest in stock market and others, right? So when you go to an advisor to invest, he would ask you, what is your time horizon? And accordingly, he picks funds, right? Yeah. So if you have a 3-year timeline, then he would say, okay, you can go for maybe like not so aggressive, but probably something at the mid level. If you are having a 5-year timeline, then you can be aggressive. If you are having a very small, a short-term timeline, less than 3 years, then he would say, then go invest in fixed-term solutions, right? So the context there is a time horizon, right? So similarly, we applied the time horizon principle to ourselves. So we decided that when we reach out to these customers, what is a time horizon in which you are looking to make them a customer? Because if you are looking to convert every conversation that you have with a prospect into a customer, you are going to be aggressively selling. You are going to be desperate for closing a sale. And that's bad for business. Nobody likes someone who is selling. And when you are actively trying to sell, I think your incentives are also not aligned. You don't have the best interest of the other person. If I have to sell something to you today, I would have that at the back of my mind every time, right? And I'm not going to be fully thinking about, I'm not going to be thinking about what is best for you. I'm going to thinking about how I can close a sale. So we decided that we are going to extend that horizon, because if we get a good customer, we want that customer to stay with us for the remaining parts of our lifetime. We are talking about 30, 40 years. We are not, Focaloid is expected to run beyond our lifetime. So when a customer comes on board, if that customer survives, like if that company is still running, we want them to be our customers forever, right? So when we have that kind of a lifetime value expected from a customer, it is all right if I spend 1-2 years in talking to him before he becomes a customer.
So you follow for 2 years.
I'll put it differently. It's not that we actively follow up with everybody for 2 years, but this is just a change in mindset, that you're not actively trying to sell to everyone that you meet. You are actually trying to just build a relation, nurture, and speak with them. And like if you travel somewhere, you have a list of contacts that you can just call up like friends, go meet. When that happens, I think business automatically follows.
Sorry to cut you. Is this inspired by pursuit of happiness? But this was something Will Smith does when he just lands up at some big stockbroker or a big businessman's house.
Unfortunately, I haven't seen the movie.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Later, I don't know if that is there.
He does the same thing. So he randomly, he intentionally set it up, but it looked randomly for the other person. So that was supposed to be his client or boss. So he was trying to sell something. So he randomly meets, but he builds a relation with that person. So,
no, but something that we realize is you can't fake it, right? If you try to fake it, then it becomes evident at some point or the other. So you genuinely have to believe in it. So that's what we have been trying to do. And the interesting thing is when you take this approach, results come much faster than you anticipate. There have been customers to whom I have spoken to for 1 to 2 years before they became a customer. But the reality, I believe, is that those customers are not going to go away from me, because they have seen, they've validated that trust, they've built it over the years. So it's not a random decision that they took. It's not an experimental decision that they took to say that, okay, let me try doing a project with Focaloid to see if it is going to be a success. They are working with Focaloid because they like the individuals at Focaloid that they have seen. And ultimately, it's you tend to do business with people that you like, right? If you don't like, let's assume you want to build a house or you want to do a design, right? You go to a designer, you meet 3-4 designers, you will pick the person that you are most comfortable with, right? not based on simply his profile and this. So that comfort level has to be there, and this comfort level is important because in life things go wrong. So no matter how good Focaloid is, there are going to be projects where something may turn out to be bad. It's possible that maybe an engineer quits, maybe an engineer falls sick, maybe our timelines don't work, maybe there are more bugs than there should have been. These are unavoidable. Those are the realities of life. But when such a situation happens, how do you handle that situation? If that relationship is strong, you can overcome that. But if that relationship is weak, you tend to separate at that point. So our focus completely has been on building that relation. How do we make sure that the other person is comfortable before he does business with us? And I cannot compel any person to do business with us. That's something I realize. It's ultimately I can do all the pitch that I want. I can create all sorts of nice PPTs. I can create compelling pitches. But ultimately, the other person is the one taking a decision. I cannot force somebody to do business with me. So then the next best thing that I can do is make him as comfortable as possible so that he decides in our favor.
So you followed up with clients abroad, you meet them, you go on a tour.
Currently, that's what we do. So we reach out to customers, and that's something we have been, and in general, like what we did earlier with the delivery side, where we started saying no to technologies, saying no to certain kind of projects, we do the same thing with sales now. We are trying to say no to as many things as possible, so that we have restricted the geographies that we reach out to, we have restricted the industries that we reach out to, the type of companies that we reach out to. And we are now trying to follow up with a very small set of people so that we can actively pursue this. If I'm reaching out to 1 million people, I cannot do this nurturing for that long. So this group has to be small. So we've started actively saying no to things, and we are giving the longer duration, like the longer time horizon for everything that we do. Because then things ultimately succeed. If I give it a very short time horizon, things may not succeed.
So how was this reaction of these people, your clients, especially overseas? Maybe they reached out, sales team reached out, but suddenly a guy from India or foreign land shows up for a meeting. So how was their reaction?
I think there's nothing new. So this is not the first time. Focaloid is not the first company to do this. I am probably emulating what everybody else is doing, and maybe what I should have done 5 years back. So if you look at companies like TCS, if you read about how they started, they just landed up in the US, they set up shop there, they started meeting people. That's how they got their first business as well. And I think this is true about any industry. In any industry, you have to be where your customer is. So if you are selling to US, then you have to be in US, meet as many people as possible, because only then you understand the psyche. If you look at any company that is sitting here and selling to the US, be it software services product, they try and meet as many customers as possible. So that's all that we are doing. So there is nothing new in what we are doing, but it was about theory. All this knowledge is out there. Looking back, this sounds like, oh, that is common sense. Why didn't we do that earlier? But the reality is, when you're in the midst of doing all this, you're also running against a budget. These things don't strike you as the most important things to do. That these are harder things to do. So you always put them off and do something that is more short term. You might say that, oh, this looks like a lot of money if I have to travel, so I might as well invest in Google Ads and get a few leads so that I can get one more customer. But that's the short term benefit that you get. This is the longer term thing.
Okay, since you said meeting in person, so how different is it meeting someone in person, like physically, over Zoom or video chat? So how's that?
I think it is 100% different. I have had cases where we have had, because of COVID, we could not travel, and these are customers that we have worked with for 3 years. After we met them a couple of times post COVID, the kind of opportunities that opened up would not have opened up if I had not met them. And I haven't done anything differently. It's the same team that is working, but the only thing that has changed that I can attribute to this is that we met them in person. So that seems to build some kind of trust. Secondly, I have an instance of a prospect with whom I've been speaking for about 6 months. We've had very good conversations, but opportunities are always further and further away. I informed him I'm in a city, so can we meet? And I was surprised when I walked into that meeting to see that he had his CTO, he had his head of engineering, he had like a whole bunch of people sitting in a conference room. And I walk in and they present a project and they discuss about a project. And I'm like, I had no clue you guys had a project. When I spoke to you a month back, you didn't give me a hint about this. You were just saying there is nothing in the pipeline. But the moment I turned up in person, they were willing to discuss that. So that turning up in person, I think, is extremely important. And this is not just in terms of sales, right? At the time of sale, everybody wants to land up in person because you have something very tangible to get at the end of a sale. In my life, I've realized that you have to simply turn up at the bad times as well. You make a screw up in your project, you have to turn up at your customer's office. He may shout at you. He may probably be unhappy and he may convey that unhappiness to you. But you still have to be bold enough to turn up at that customer's office, because that is the ultimate test of this, right? That are you willing to turn up? Are you willing to take up responsibility when things are not right? Yeah. So this turning up is not restricted to when everything is hunky-dory and going well. You also have to do this when things are not going so well. I think at that point, it is even more critical to turn up.
Yes, that's very thoughtful. That's very interesting. So I have one question with your industry in whole. Now with a lot of platforms, they are selling templates of projects or mobile application, web applications for a very, very affordable cost, because these are some engineers, couple of engineers sitting maybe in dorm, in university, they build applications. Could be dating app, TikTok. They mention lookalike app, like a lookalike Facebook or any kind of app. They have this template. They will customize according to your needs and deliver it to you at very affordable cost, less than $500-$400 in platform like Fiverr, Upwork. So how do you see this industry, this market? How's that taking away your clients? How do you see that?
So if you take the analogy of housing, in the past, you always used to do custom developments. You have to buy a plot and then build an apartment or build a house or a large bungalow or whatever you want, but it was all custom, right? Then if you look at today, there are a lot of apartments being sold, right? These apartments are pre-packaged. They're like products that are being sold. But does that mean that today there are no custom development of houses? No, there are still villas being built. There are still plots being sold. There is still a market for that. Probably a fraction of the market or a large share of the market is currently being sold through apartments. But there is still a big enough market for that. So that's how I see it. And I don't see custom software development ever stopping, because in my realization, what I've learned is, in my experience, what I've learned is that why do you need software? A software is to improve or probably to help you with something that you already do, right? And people always have a choice of building versus buying something. When you buy, you have to transform or you have to change the way you work in order to adjust to that software. So let's say if you pick a CRM or an ERP, the ERP has to be used in a certain manner. So you have to transform the way you work to match with whatever is the standard practice. Many companies do that. There are a set of companies where they'll say that change in human behavior is far more difficult. So rather than changing my method to the way how that software works, I want to build a software that works according to the way that we do things. So in that perspective, if you look at it, there is always going to be a market, because if not, look at it this way, that there should only be one CRM in the world, right? But why isn't there one CRM in the world? Because different people prefer different CRMs for their needs. And each CRM is quite different from one another. While all of them have the same modules and all of it, there are probably minor changes, but things that matter a lot to people who have chosen that CRM. Because they go there because that thing is very important to them. So in that way, there is always a market for custom software development, because all it requires is the person to have that much of commitment to that change. Say that this thing is so valuable to me that I'm willing to pay to build it. And people value that. So I don't have a fear of these small products or taking over the entire market, because there is always going to be a market for this. And the larger you grow, larger enterprises will always have new things that need to be built.
Okay. So, what is the future of Focaloid or services industry with the introduction of OpenAI, generative AI? So, how do you see the future of the whole industry with AI?
If I were to be brutally honest with you, I have no clue. This is something I'm losing sleep over, right? To figure out how is this industry going to transform, how do we do business. But somewhere my gut tells me that while it might look completely disruptive, it may disrupt the whole market, but we will still figure a way out. There is going to be some value add that we can provide on top of this. There will still be a need for people. It's not that people are going to be completely replaced. It's not that software comes in and AI comes in and it starts writing software on itself. It may happen, but even then people are going to have a use. I don't know what that use is specifically, but I'm confident that there will be a use. Jobs will get replaced. Jobs will not end. I mean, like currently what you do may get replaced by automation, but then you will be free to take up something else, some other value add kind of job. And in general, my understanding is that we may tend to focus on things that are more creative. Like, this is a thought that I have, but not very well conceptualized. It's that things that are highly technical, that is regarded as rocket science, which require a lot of analytics. For example, let's say designing a PCB. That is really intricate work, right? It requires a lot of thought going into it, a lot of engineering going into it. You need to design it well. The spacing needs to be better. Nowadays, if you look at your smartphones or all of that, nobody is handcrafting those PCBs. It is all machine built.
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe that that's the kind of things that AI will also do, right? So maybe today a software architect is required to design the whole software and like set up the architecture, set up the infrastructure, ensure it is built for scale, ensure it is built for security. Maybe those kind of things AI will probably do a far better job at it, because it requires that additional brute force capability to think through all scenarios. But I think the liberal side of things, the art side of things, where there is a little bit of artistic way to do it, like that cannot be brought in by AI. I think so. More and more people will get freed up who will start focusing on that. Like today, content generation is probably, your LLMs can give you all the content that you want. You give it a prompt, it will give you a para, or it will give you a newsletter. But I think gradually there will be a market for handcrafted thing. I think people will value that, hey, this is something that is written by a human, because people will want to relate to that. And today there is a market for handcrafted products, right?
Yes.
So similarly, I think those markets will also evolve. So I'm not afraid about Focaloid going out of business, but I don't know what we will be doing in future.
No,
because
I'm not
there could
talking
be
about
changes.
out of business. I'm saying how it's going to impact in any way.
In
How it's
I
going
only have probably a short-term view of things, because in the long term, I don't have enough visibility to really predict, or I don't have a hot take on
Will
it.
your scalability increase? Can you scale more? Means can you
It may not be in
accommodate
terms of headcount, because if today the services industry is probably linear. We spoke about this earlier, right? That it's a function of headcount. If I have 10 people, there is so much revenue that I can get. I think that limit may change.
Yes.
Because of AI, I might be able to service more customers or take on more projects with the same number of people. So in that way, my scalability increases. But my ability to probably build an Infosys where I have like multiple, like a few 100,000 people, I really doubt that market is there anymore. I don't think we'll ever get there.
So that's what when I say how it's going to impact.
Okay. I think we will become scalable in terms of being able to serve more customers, probably integrate AI into the way we do things, probably start offering today maybe what an engineer does, he may be able to do 10x more with support from AI. But And we might become more specialized because uh, if when I offer such a service, the person who's out there has to be a value add. I think in some way we will start becoming consultants, not, and by consulting I mean where we are actually selling our thought process rather than sitting and writing a line of code for him, because writing that line of code might get automated, but this thinking process is something that's what we are going to be selling.
How the way it should look,
Yeah.
how the way it should function.
So we might transform more into the likes of, this business might become more similar to today how probably a business consulting works. Let's say a Bain or a McKinsey. They sell literally brain power to you, right? You're given a consultant and you hire that consultant because he can think, he can decide what is good for your business, he can look at problems and identify it. So probably the IT services industry will start moving towards that, where you really need people who can think, who have in-depth knowledge, who are able to solve problems. Because a lot of the manual work that you get paid for today will get automated.
So basically, the mundane, that's what we have been constantly talked through. Mundane jobs get replaced, but
And yeah,
we
yesterday
are
I was
perfect.
seeing a video of I think a machine that goes in and scrubs a toilet, cleans the bathroom.
Exactly. So that's something we need, right? For that, definitely AI has to help. So especially if there is an automated machine,
Which will probably put janitors out of job. But there will be probably a job for maintaining all those machines. There will be a job for programming all those machines, designing those machines, running such clusters.
Yeah.
So new jobs will come up.
the maintenance of these machines means maintenance engineers
Right.
who manage the battery, like how long they able to function. Yeah, interesting. So that was very thoughtful. I want to know more about the sales process. How important, definitely sales is important for any business. Let's say it's automotive, software, even restaurants. Sales is the key. It's the money generating department or the team. So how important is sales team in your company?
I think sales is the lifeblood of all companies. This is not my words. This is the truth. Right? I was just speaking at an event, and I think I repeated these same words, that sales has acquired a bad reputation. Sales is looked upon not as a very nice thing to do. Sales is looked at as a last resort of things. Nobody puts their hands up and says, I want to be a salesperson. Like if you ask a school full of kids what they want to be, nobody says, I want to be a salesperson. Because sales has acquired that wrong reputation, I think, because of targets, the fact that you are forced to sell, you have to sell to someone. But I fundamentally have grown to believe, my wording is wrong. I did not fundamentally believe this, but I have grown to realize that is wrong. That sales is actually a good thing, because if you approach sales with the intent of just selling something and hitting a target, you have a problem. But if you approach sales with the idea of solving somebody else's problem, then you're doing sales the right way. And that was a realization that hit upon quite well, because even I was a incidental salesperson or a reluctant salesperson. I did not like when we started Focaloid, I did not put up my hand and said, oh, let me do sales. This is something I've been waiting to all my life. That is not the truth. I took up sales because that was one box that was remaining unchecked. We had somebody to do technology, we had somebody to look at HR operations. Okay, then the sales wala box is open and there's nobody else to do it. So then you put your hands up and say, I will do it, because there's nobody else to do it. That's how I got into sales. But today I've grown to love it. Today I'm seeing structures being built. I'm seeing an organization being built. And my whole interest is in building that sales engine as a self-sustainable engine, where it is not about just selling. I believe that if we build a good organization, then I think sales will automatically come. And salespeople also have to be treated as part of an organization. They also have to be groomed. They also have to be, you need to build a career path for them. You need to train them. You need to help them improve.
So with that, sales often believed is a very short term for anyone out of college, non-technical background. So they start their career with sales. This is general mindset, and gradually they move on, maybe to a different department, maybe they do some master, they do some specialization to become human resource manager or a project manager or into management probably. So the lifetime of a salesperson often it's very short. So is that the case in your experience as well?
I think that is fundamentally happening because sales is not your first choice. Many of these people take up sales because they did not get any other job. So they don't want to be jobless. They want some form of earning. So, and the only job that is available easily where people are hired in bulk is probably sales. So they take up that job not because they like it or because they have any inkling about it. And unfortunately, many sales organizations are run very poorly, where it is a mass hire and fire wala approach, where you say you come in, you sell this, you aggressively have to sell 10 of this product in a day, you have to make 100 call. And then when an organization is structured that way, then you tend to missell, you tend to have wrong practices. When that happens, I think it creates a sense of disillusionment in a person. When you are disillusioned with a career, you don't want to persist with it. So then you are trying to get out of it. So depending on the kind of experiences that you have had in your organization, if that sort of validates your earlier interpretation or earlier feeling that sales is bad, then it strengthens that. So at the end of it, you are feeling, oh yeah, I was right. Sales is extremely bad. So I don't want to be in sales because it does not agree with my internal morals. Like I believe that everybody by default is genuine. Nobody wants to hurt others. But if you are forced to sell things that your customers don't want by pushing them, etc., at some point you're going to feel frustrated by saying that I'm fed up of doing this. I'm not able to sleep well at night. But then you're going to hate sales. But there are organizations that do a very good job with sales. There are organizations where you enjoy selling because you are genuinely helping customers. If you look at such organizations, people tend to continue to be in sales. They tend to grow companies. If you look at most CEOs, they would have come from a sale background. They would have sold at some point in their career, and that's how they progress to become a CEO.
Is Steve Jobs. He's the best salesman.
So it is very. So then that sort of contradicts your earlier statement, right? That people don't stick along in sales for long. I think it depends on what your experiences are, but fundamentally sales is not a bad thing. It's just that you have to do it the right way. You have to give people the right amount of time. And sometimes people can't perform because maybe your product is bad. Maybe the same salesperson may work in one company but not in another company. The same salesperson may be able to sell one product but not another product. He may be able to sell in one market but not in another market. So a lot of these combinations have to become right for a salesperson's career to become fulfilling. And that does not always work out that way. And in sales, you are dealing with a lot of luck as well, right? Because it is possible that the first 1,000 calls that you make, everybody might say no. The next 10 calls, people might say yes. So your overall numbers may still say that this percentage of calls convert to customers, but your luck may be structured in a certain way. So a lot of this has to gel right, and it doesn't gel. It is not easy to measure. Like when you hire a salesperson, it is impossible to say whether the guy will work or not. Right? It is like hiring somebody and I think I've had this. I've been fascinated by how cricket teams are built, and I feel it is very similar to cricket. Somebody may perform really well in your first class cricket, but doesn't mean that he performs well in international cricket. If you give him enough time, he will perform. But what is the time that you are willing to give varies from company to company. Somebody may give him only 3 months. Somebody may give him only a month. Somebody may be willing to give him 10 years. If you are able to give him 10 years, everybody will definitely perform. But can companies afford to give 10 years to everybody? No. Company will run out of money by then. So I think that's where this whole connotation of sales come from, that sales is bad. There is a lot of pressure in sales. You have to hit targets, and that's not a sustainable lifestyle. It is all sustainable, but it's not. A lot of things have to come together for it to work well, and that does not happen quite often.
Early in the conversation, you said you will come around for Ashwin or
Anish.
Anish, sorry. Anish, he left the job and started focusing on entrepreneurship or in this business. It is a very tough decision even now. So for anyone to leave their paying job and take up this career opportunity as an entrepreneur. But how do you see that? So what's your opinion on this? So
Uh, People like Anish are very rare, and I have been very fortunate to have him as a co-founder. Right. My first experience with Anish was that we joined our jobs and we were staying in the same apartment together. So we have only met after we joined the job, right? And I had been preparing for CAT with one of my friends earlier. So I've already given CAT while in college. I didn't get through, and so I joined a job, and I thought I'll continue doing this. At some point I'll get through, and then I'll quit my job and go do my MBA. And there I meet Anish, uh, who has not studied or heard about CAT at all. So there is this guy who's fascinated by what we are doing. He says, "Why are you guys coming back and studying?" Then we tell him what is CAT, what do we intend to do. These are the sort of colleges, and he's fascinated by it. So he does his own research, he learns about it, and he realizes that that's a good thing to do. A couple of months down the line, this guy has put his paper and he says, "Yeah, I quit my job. I'm going to attempt CAT." It takes a lot of balls for someone in 2008 to quit his job full time and say, "I'm going to study CAT," when he has only known about CAT a few months earlier to this. All of us did not have that conviction in us, despite knowing what CAT was and having prepared for it maybe a couple of years in college. I think from third year in college, we have been actively looking at getting into the IIMs. But we did not have the conviction to take an year off and do this, but he had. And to quit a job in 2008 is not an easy thing. So he did that. And so when we asked him, his answer was very simple. If you have a plan B, your plan A is never going to work. So the best way to make your plan A work is to cut off your plan B, to make sure you don't have any other alternate. And you automatically do that. So this was hugely inspirational. And the interesting thing is that he got through CAT the next year, while none of us did. So he got through to NITI and he did his MBA at NITI a year or two before us. And I realized that was only because of what he did. That he had 100% conviction in what he was doing and he gave it his all, while all of us were holding something back. So that was hugely inspirational for me. So in my final year at work, I replicated the same thing. So I gave in my exams and then I put in my paper. And only after that, and so I put in my paper even before I had gotten through to any college, even before the interviews had happened. Because I realized that I would do that. I will get into a college. And I got into a college, I got into IIMA. So that sort of reinforced my belief that what he said was right. If you hold yourself back and you have a plan B, then you're not committing to plan A. So this guy calls me up when I'm in my internship, and he says, "Let's start a company." I don't think twice. I say yes. And I think that is something that I've seen in Anish through, and all our co-founders appreciate that in Anish. He's someone who is a risk taker. He's someone who does things those are unconventional, not for the sake of doing it, because he has conviction in that. So once he commits himself to something, he will go ahead and do it. And it's difficult to come across such people, because I can talk about conviction and commitment and all of that and give lectures, but here is a guy who doesn't talk about any of that. He just does it, applies it, and he does it in everything in his life. And that's really amazing to see. That gives you a lot of confidence. And when you have such a guy with you, you're willing to go through anything. Yes, absolutely. Right. He's still, I think he's been our driving force. He's been the person influencing everything, the direction that we take, how we progress. Anish probably is underappreciated or underrated at what it is, but he's the driving force behind what a lot of what we achieve at Focaloid.
If people who watch this video, if they comment, we want to have a podcast with Anish, I'll definitely let you know. He might be the next guest, or he might be a future guest. Okay, I think with that, we are coming to the closing of this podcast. Your closing thoughts for the audience in general, because you are inspiring in sales, building a business, and for aspirants who want to, just before we close the conversation, your insight about Anish would be definitely inspirational for anyone who's aspiring to Indian Institute of Management or Indian Institute of Technologies, anything great. And before that, last night was Chandrayaan 3 got successfully landed in South Pole of the Moon. So I would like to congratulate all the minds work behind it. Yeah, who never left India for NASA. So
No, actually, I have a batchmate of mine. So our entire WhatsApp group is buzzing with that. I have a batchmate of mine, Abhilash, who is part of ISRO, who was part of the team that has helped this happen. So kudos to him and to the entire team at ISRO for making this happen. We're extremely proud of what they have achieved, and with limited means, they've tried to achieve what probably people thought was impossible or something that we shouldn't be focusing on. So kudos to them for rewriting that.
any closing thoughts for
I think our biggest thought has been what I spoke about earlier in terms of time horizons. So in whatever you do, you expand the horizon. So it is said that, this is again, I'm taking somebody else's quote, I don't know whose it is, that people tend to overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. So expand your time horizons on everything. And I think at Focaloid, the only reason we believe we have even scratched the surface of what we can call success is because we persisted in the business for 10 years. Had we shut shop at 7 years, had we shut shop at 6 years, 8 years, we would have been a failure. The only reason we are surviving today is because we persisted. That's the reason we have all these customers, we are profitable, we are growing. All of that is simply because of persistence. The fact that we stuck along for 10 years. And now when I look at it and say, what can I achieve if I stick along for the next 25 years? I will achieve a lot more simply by sticking along. I don't have to be remarkable. I don't have to be a genius. I don't have to be anything. Simply by sticking along, by being there, I think I will achieve a lot. And that's what we need to do in everything that you do in life. If you're setting up a sales team, plan for the long horizon. Don't look at a 1-year goal. If you are investing in yourself, if you want to become a writer, if you want to start doing podcast, don't stop after 1 year. Plan it for at least 3-5 years and continue doing it, because you will turn around that corner at some point. But for someone, it might be in a year. For some, it might be after 10 years. And unless you are there for 10 years, there will always be a what if. What if I had persisted with that for some more time?
True that. Yeah.
Yep.
So with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Saravana. Pleasure to be here. It was good to meet you the other day as well. And all my, I think, best wishes for your podcast. I hope that you get to have wonderful guests here. And I think your earlier guests have been inspirational as well. So I look forward to listening to your podcast more as well.
Thank you.